So, you may have seen me make a little arm motion and there's a couple reasons for that. One, because I don't know this software that we're using that well, and I messed something up. We waited for like 4.5 minutes because I wanted to get to a specific part of a song, and then instead of pulling the volume up, I stopped the song and played another song. The other reason is because when we do the Alumni House podcast, we have our logo over our faces during the intro music, and I forgot that we didn't have that. So, welcome to the first episode of Southbound, an NFL podcast. So, I'm really excited about this. We are so new. We don't have a logo. We don't have intro music, anything. In fact, don't tell anybody, but I wasn't supposed to play that song. It's okay, though, because we're just going to do it this once. And that wasn't even the song I meant to play. But if you have not listened to our other show, it is called Alumni House, where we focus on the 5 conferences in Division I college football that reside predominantly in the Southeast. And, there are some teams out on the West Coast now. But if you love Southeastern football, not Southeastern Conference exclusively, but Southeastern football, you should check that out. We do that twice a week. So for introductions, my name's Matt.
I'm the Quacker.
All right. And so this will be obviously structured a little bit different because when we do the college podcast, we have, we have about 60 teams that we cover. And so we have to sort of jump through, the big games and just the marquee matchups that we think about. One of the things I'm really excited about, Quacker and I are a little bit different here. We both love college football. I would say my love for the NFL is either even or slightly greater than it is for college football. That has not always been the case. But as I've gotten older, that's started to be. So I love the NFL. Quacker does too, but I'm particularly excited about this. But just to let you know how it's going to work, we are both Saints fans. We're not going to hide that. But the good news for all of you listening, if you're not Saints fans, we're probably not going to have a lot of great things to say about the Saints this year. So it's okay. But we will, because we're Saints fans and because we, both live in the Southeast, albeit opposite sides of the Southeast, we are going to focus primarily on the NFC South. This is not a Saints podcast, but we know more about the Saints than we do the other teams, so we'll kind of go from there. So, Quacker, why don't you take just a minute and kind of tell everybody a little bit about what you're excited about for us to dig into this different medium of football.
One, it's a smaller and it's weird saying it's a smaller medium because there's just less teams to have to kind of dig through. It's daunting going through 5 conferences that have a minimum of 12 to 14 teams in them. This is 32 teams. All the rules are the same throughout the league. There's no different rules for AFC and NFC. It's right. All the same. You don't have to worry about transfer portal and all that stuff. You have free agency and off season, but that's, I guess that's that's a form of transfer portal. But they have longer contracts that they're bound to. And then with it being the NFL, there's a lot of storylines that kind of creep up throughout the year. Maybe a little more so than college football does. Outside of when the season's over, outside of recruiting and transfer portal, you'll only see stories that are negative for the most part. You'll see something good every now and then. With the NFL, there's constantly news coming out about business stuff, like new stadiums, teams thinking about moving somewhere.
Wait, hang on one second here. You ready? This is what I was waiting for, so I had to do it. Just to get everybody in the mood. Doesn't that just bring chills? Like, So every time I hear that, I think about Al Michaels introing it because that was our childhood. Now, obviously, being Saints fans, we hear the Fox theme a lot more. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to let you finish your thought in a second. I want you to. But I got the Fox app about a year ago to kind of supplement ESPN. But it's the alert sound for the Fox alerts is the very beginning of the Fox intro. So I started to play it, and I was like, it's not doing it for me because I'm like desensitized to it now because I hear it 7 times a day.
Right.
Actually, more like 70 times a day. Yeah. So I just felt like that was a good little teaser for what's to come. But anyway, go ahead and finish your thought.
What was my thought?
Well, you were talking about news, off-season news, and
yeah. I mean, there are some negative stories that come out, but a lot of it is just transactional stuff. But it's relevant throughout the off season and stuff. It's these teams are playing overseas somewhere, or the Saints have signed a new agreement with so and so to be the official bootleg DVD sponsor, or so, just whatever. So there's plenty of news that just constantly comes out of the NFL. Whereas kind of with college football, college sports, once the season's over, outside of transfer portal and recruiting, it kind of dies down. So
yeah. Well, So there's a lot of cool things, and it's an interesting dichotomy too, because college football has the largest stadiums in the world, particularly in the Southeast and in the Big Ten. But the NFL is far more valuable in terms of just what it would be. Its actual business valuation.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting there because, and I don't know the television viewership. I know that the in-person attendance, college football, there's 134 teams or whatever, so there's going to be more. But if they averaged it out, I'm sure college football has higher attendance on average. But I would imagine that NFL viewership is close to or higher on average than college football. And there are a lot of reasons for that, at any rate, it's going to be a lot of fun. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to run through the schedule, and I also guess I could put the schedule down at the bottom in case you miss it. At the top, not the bottom. I promise you I'm not new at this. But I'm going to run through the schedule, and then Quacker, I'm not going to make you do this because I didn't give you fair warning, but feel free to do so if you want to. I am then going to give because the season starts tomorrow, I'm going to give my preseason predictions for the standings in each of the divisions. And like I said, feel free to jump in and do it as well, but you don't have to.
All right.
Typically, we'll talk about this stuff before the show. I didn't talk to him about it, so I'm not going to make him do it. If it were college football, I would put him on the spot. All right, so tomorrow night, first game is the Micah Parsons-less Dallas Cowboys going to Philadelphia, and that is going to be on NBC and Peacock. And then we've got a Friday night game this year, which is always nice. I like it when they do that. Kansas City at Los Angeles. That's all times are Eastern, by the way, that I'm going to read off. So Dallas at Philadelphia is 8:20 on Thursday. Kansas City at Los Angeles is 8 p.m. on Friday. And then to kick off Sunday in the 1 o'clock window, Tampa Bay is at Atlanta, Cincinnati at Cleveland, Miami at Indianapolis. Indianapolis has a new starting quarterback, by the way. Las Vegas with Pete Carroll at New England. The Cardinals at New Orleans. Pittsburgh at the Jets. It just said New York, but the logo was too tiny. I couldn't see it. Oh, and then the right below it, and then the New York Giants are going to Washington. That'll be an interesting game. I think the Giants are a little better than they have been recently, but the Commanders are going to be pretty awesome. And then wrapping up the 1:00 window is Carolina at Jacksonville. And the big question there is, will this be the year that Jacksonville puts it together? And probably not, but who knows? All right. Then we have Tennessee at Denver. Denver's going to have a good team this year. San Francisco at Seattle. Detroit at Green Bay. Little divisional game to start things off there. The Texans are going to L.A. to play the Rams. And then Baltimore will be at Buffalo. That wraps up Sunday. And let me get to Monday here. So interesting real quick. So Sunday night, or I'm sorry, Friday night, the Chiefs are playing the Chargers at SoFi Stadium. Sunday, in the late window, the Texans are playing the Rams at SoFi Stadium. Now, obviously, we all know they share a stadium. I don't think I've ever seen them play on the same weekend. So I know these grounds crews can do it, but for an NFL game, that's a big task. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think that their field is kind of like the Cardinals field, where it's on tracks where they can slide it out. And
yeah, there's all kinds. I think it's probably way more advanced than that, even because it's got there's all kinds of crazy things these new stadiums can do. Like I know Atlanta's stadium. I'm a big soccer fan, and so I remember when Arthur Blank announced the team in like 2014, a year or two ahead of their starting, and they were building the Mercedes-Benz. I don't even like calling it that because the Superdome used to be the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, but when they were building the replacement for the Georgia Dome, he said Atlanta United is going to play in the same building as the Falcons, but there will never be NFL lines on this stadium. And I know that and soccer goes basically school year. Well, all soccer except for MLS. MLS doesn't, but MLS goes from like March to like end of September, October-ish. So they're playing during football season. And so all of these, I don't know what it is, but they've all got these crazy things they can do to turn fields. And plus, like Mercedes-Benz, and I bet I'm sure SoFi's on the list too, but the U.S., Mexico, and Canada are hosting the World Cup next summer. And FIFA International, the world governing body for soccer, does not allow official FIFA competitions that are intercontinental. In other words, CONCACAF, which is like, the North American Confederation, they can do this. But any intercontinental matchups, so like the World Cup or Club World Cup, anything like that, cannot be played on artificial turf. And I know that Mercedes-Benz and SoFi are both participating in that. So, I think SoFi is. I know Mercedes-Benz is. But, yeah, so it's crazy. I did forget one on Sunday the Sunday night game at 8:20 is Baltimore-Buffalo. But then
that's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, that will be maybe the best game of the weekend. And then to wrap up Monday, the weekend on Monday Night Football. This is going to be kind of a snoozer to me because, so it's Minnesota at Chicago. I think Minnesota will be better than Chicago, but I don't know that either one will be particularly great. Anything that stands out for you for the schedule? Other than the fact that this is like the 6th time in 10 years we've opened with the Cardinals. It's not really, but I feel like we open with them every year.
I'm definitely looking forward to the Sunday night game with the Bills and Ravens. I believe that was a playoff rematch from last year, if I remember right.
It might have been. I have a terrible memory for stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an early matchup against two teams that will be a heavyweight throughout the season. Two definitely playoff teams. Right now, this is all barring a catastrophic injury to quarterbacks and stuff. Lions Packers. I think that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
The Lions have new coordinators on both sides of the ball because Their coordinators are so good. They both got head coaching jobs in the all season.
Yeah.
In fact, I was really hoping that
they'll be the best two teams in the NFC North because Minnesota and Chicago. I mean, Chicago is going to be fourth, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was really hoping that we were going to get Aaron Glenn with the Saints for a head coach, and then he got hired by the Jets. And I'm not mad about Kellen Moore at all. He just wasn't on my radar when that was up for.
Well, go ahead and finish. I want to go down this rabbit trail, but go ahead and finish. Are there any other games that stand out to you?
So the Jets and Steelers. That's gonna be interesting because you got Aaron Rodgers playing the Jets. You know, his first game with the Steelers is gonna be against his now former team, which is weird to say. I really kind of thought he was going to wind up with the Vikings to just complete the Brett Favre tour.
Yeah, he almost did. So I'm gonna just tell you something, and I have a good friend who's a Steelers fan. And I keep trying to tell him this, and he doesn't believe me. Aaron Rodgers. First of all, there's no secret that the Jets are a poorly run organization.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. And sorry, I was looking at something on the U.S. Open. They're doing something weird. I am too ADD to have the TV on while I'm doing this. But Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season at Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin was a winner. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl, but he was a winner and a playoff contender every year with Big Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe in Russell Wilson. I have not since the Legion of Boom left Seattle. I mean, his last few years in Seattle, he was not good. And he wasn't good with the Broncos under Sean Payton, and he wasn't good last year. So I think the Steelers are going to be one of the best teams in the NFL if their defense can hold. But the thing is, there is no coach in the NFL, and I would say this if Belichick was still coaching. There is no coach in the NFL who is more consistent. You could make the argument that Andy Reid or Sean Payton are better coaches or have higher ceilings, but they've both missed the playoffs before. You know, Sean Payton missed the playoffs a handful of times with Drew Brees. And I'm not just talking about like 2007. Like they missed it in like 14 or 13. You know what I'm saying? Like so. And I'm not.
There were several consecutive years they missed it. Yeah.
Well, not several. I think the most they missed were 2 in a row twice. They did that twice, I think. But my point is that he is consistency, and in my opinion, Mike Tomlin is because of that the best coach in the NFL right now. Because of his track record.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And so that's a dangerous combination if you're not a Steelers fan. But, all right, so let me tell you why I am mad about Kellen Moore, and it's not Kellen Moore's fault. I'm mad about Kellen Moore because Kellen Moore, I think, is going to wind up being a really, really good head coach. The problem is, for us, is that it, in all likelihood, will not be in New Orleans because they hired him in a really bad salary cap situation. Now, thankfully, we wiped a lot of that away with Derek Carr retiring. Now, just as an aside, I feel like NFL owners do this a lot, but I totally could see Gail Benson and her people calling Derek Carr over on a Sunday afternoon for brunch and saying, "Hey, if you'll go ahead and medically retire, we'll give you we got $40 million here for you. Just take a year off and go play wherever you want." I like to think that stuff happens. But because obviously, if they were to release him, they still have to eat a lot of that cap. So that cap money. So I'm not mad that we have Kellen Moore. I'm mad that we have Kellen Moore right now because I feel like his tenure is going to be wasted. Now I hope I'm wrong, but I
think that they're giving some time, just because they know what he's walked into.
3 or 3.5 years is time, and it will take all of that to get the cap reset,
Well, they wiped the Derek Carr, and that kind of put them back in the black. And then after this year,
put them in the black. I mean, they were still $30 million over, but they still had to do some more restructuring. But
They got him closer to black. After this year, Cam Jordan's retiring. I think this. I'm pretty sure I've heard him say that this is his last year, which I hate because he's been one of my favorite Saints
Yeah,
since he was.
I think he said it's up in the air, but I mean, I think everyone thinks he and Demario Davis are probably both gone. Taysom Hill's close to the end. Alvin Kamara for a running back, he's right at the end of the typical shelf life for a running back, which sounds weird because he's not that old. I think he's, I don't know, 29 or 30, but, running backs typically, and he may be a smidge older than that. I think he came out in like 16 or 17, but typically running backs, get 8 or 9 years, and then after that, if they stay in the league, they're just playing,
Yeah.
filling in gaps. So,
Yeah, I think you're going to see some numbers come off in the next year, just from retirements and stuff like that. Some of my favorite players, like I've loved Taysom since he was been with the Saints. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, who's a Mississippi boy. So seeing him right down the road is awesome. But they are getting older. At the time. And Father Time was undefeated, right? So all of our childhood quarterbacks have gone. They're all in the Hall of Fame except for Brady, and that's just because he played for forever. But
well,
I think
we were.
I think that
you were an adult. I was almost an adult when Brady started. So
yeah. He was drafted in what
2000, I believe.
2000.
I think. If I remember correctly, I can't remember, Peyton or Brady came 1 year early. I think Peyton came because he came in 98, so maybe it was 99. Because I feel like Peyton. For a long time I thought Peyton, Brady, and Breeze were all 1 year apart, and Breeze was the youngest. But I could be wrong about that. But they're all right there between 98 and 01 because Breeze was 01. So
yeah. Yeah, so if Brady was 99 or 2000, I graduated high school in 2000, so I was still, in the very end of my childhood. But we're at this point now where people who watched when we were kids, they have kids in the NFL now. So, it's
what we're at is we're at the point that players we remember, post our college days. Being in college are now retired from the NFL.
Yeah.
So, but look, here's the thing. One thing we have to remember, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the cap because I'm not, but retired players, there's still a freeze on money for like a year after they retire, or it might be 2 years. And it's not all the money, but it's some of the money for the reason that I just said, jokingly about Derek Carr. But, obviously players have done it. Brett Favre's done it. A few other players have done it. Joe Flacco was not retired. He was just an unsigned free agent. But so the money won't clear up quite as quickly as I think you might think it will. But the thing is, I think in year 3 for Kellen Moore, the cap will be pretty good. But see, the one problem with being in a bad cap situation with a lot of older players is that you got your 2, 3, 4 year window to kind of to get it right, but then you have to build a roster because once your cap's good, then you have to start not only drafting well and making strategic trades to get up to where you want to be, but you also have to, make strategic signings. And so I'm not sure how long Benson, in his will, one of the stipulations was that Mickey Loomis was retained. I'm not sure how long that will stay in place, but I am not the typical Saints fan that just absolutely hates Mickey Loomis. However, I think we could do for a new GM, and so
I kind of think his time has kind of come and gone. I think he's past his prime.
Yeah,
which is weird to say.
It could be that the the business changes all the time, so I don't think it's that weird.
Yeah,
but it could be that Benson's will only stated he had to stay for like a year or two, and Gail Benson doesn't want to remove him for to honor Benson. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, So let's talk about the divisions real quick. Let me, oops, jump over there. Oh, come on. I have too many things on my desk. All right, so starting in the AFC East, so we've got the Dolphins, Patriots, Bills, and Jets. Well, this one's easy. Jets are going to finish last. Bills are going to finish first. So I am going to say that Miami finishes second, New England finishes third. However, I think we're going to see McDaniel and Miami start to trend downward. So it wouldn't surprise me if that were flipped. But my official East projection is Buffalo, Miami, New England, and New York. And on any of these divisions, stop me if you want to weigh in.
I'll give you my East. I got a winner for each one, but I don't have any kind of order after that. But
give me your winners.
All right, so for the East, I've got Buffalo as well. Okay. So, that was probably the easiest selection out of every other division.
Yeah.
So,
AFC North. Look, here's the deal: Lamar Jackson's the real deal, and he does it with a lot of people not around him, and I think a lot of that is because Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh just have a great working relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm picking them to finish second because of what I've already talked about. I've got the Steelers finishing first, the Ravens finishing second, the Bengals finishing third, asterisks, and the Browns finishing fourth. That asterisk is because I really need to see Joe Burrow finish the season without getting hurt again. Because when he's healthy, he's surgical, but he's just not been super healthy in the pros.
But that's not really been his fault. They don't have a line.
I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying,
yeah.
Like, if he can't, it's similar to Tua. I don't blame Tua for getting hurt all the time, but it's not as bad. Tua's like made of porcelain, but yeah, I mean, so the problem is Joe Burrow is good enough to be one of the greatest, not just be a Hall of Famer, but to be one of the greatest Hall of Famers we've ever seen. But I feel like he's starting to teeter on that line of his career might just get cut short and he becomes an afterthought, not because of his talent or his brain, but because if he can't stay healthy, long enough to put it together, he's never going to be able to do that, So,
yeah. He could be an Andrew Luck.
Yeah, he could be. Except I think he's a little more talented than Andrew Luck was. But Andrew Luck was, a very similar situation. All right, so who do you have for the North?
All right, I swear we didn't go over this stuff before because I've got Pittsburgh winning as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I was thinking the same thing with Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. I just thought that combination.
Yeah.
You got T.J. Watt on the defensive side of the ball, and he's getting older. Cam Hayward's still a menace. So that defense, it's always been really solid with Tomlin there. I mean, that's been the hallmark of the Steelers since the 70s. It's been their defense. So I think with all that, it'll be a close race, but I think Pittsburgh wins the division.
Well, and Baltimore is the overwhelming favorite for most people. So, we'll see how that works out. Okay, so this one's interesting. It's interesting because a few years ago I wouldn't have said this, but in the AFC South we have the Titans, the Texans, the Colts, and the Jaguars. So I'm gonna have the Colts bringing up. I'm not the Colts. The Titans bringing up the rear. Colts in second. I went out of order. Sorry. The Jaguars in third, and the Texans win this division easily.
Yeah. I've got Houston as well.
Okay.
They're just
well.
I think Tennessee will quickly.
Go ahead.
I think Tennessee will quickly rise in the next couple of years because I think what's his name? The quarterback. The Titans drafted Cam Ward. Yeah, I think he could be the real deal. So I think in the next couple of years.
Deal, but I just don't think. I think it's a similar situation to what happened with Justin Fields in Chicago. And notice I didn't say Caleb Williams because I don't think Caleb Williams. I think he's kind of he was kind of the precursor to Shador in a way that, like, I feel like they were both really, really overhyped. But Justin Fields, I feel like, was sort of appropriately hyped, but was in a terribly run organization in a bad situation at the end of an old regime and then the beginning of a new one to start his career. So, anyway, yeah, I mean, they could. But if they don't, it's not because of Cam Ward. I mean, I think he is the real deal for sure. But I really want to see Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville put it together. I don't think that they're quite there. But I do have them. I do have them in third. So, all right. So, the AFC West. This one's more interesting because you have three teams that will almost certainly be playoff teams, and then a fourth team who has a coach who's won a Super Bowl and had some really good teams. So, in the AFC West, we have the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you want to talk about a division? I don't think there's ever been a division with four teams in the playoffs. You want to talk about a division with a chance to have four teams in the playoffs? It's the AFC West, okay? Especially when you look up right up next to them and you see the AFC South, where you're not going to get a wild card team. You're going to get one team in, So, so in this one, obviously, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win the division, even though the Chiefs typically play better in the playoffs than they do in the regular season. So it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't win their division, but I think they will. And then I've got this is tough because the Broncos are really trending up, but I'm going to take the Chargers in second, and then I'm going to take the Broncos in third, the best third place team in the NFL, and then the Raiders, the best fourth place team in the NFL. The Raiders, if what I think happens, the Raiders will finish fourth with a better record than some division winners.
I could see that. Yeah. All right, I had picked Kansas City to begin with, but I think I'm going to take Denver just to kind of change it up a little bit. I think Bo Nix has shown me a lot. I mean, I was already impressed with him in college, but he showed me a lot this preseason. He was really good last year. Sean Payton's still Sean Payton, and I think they drafted well. So I think if they don't come in first, they're going to come in second. But it's to me, it's Denver or Kansas City. I'm going to take Denver.
Look, I think in 5 years we're going to all be saying Bo Nix is one of the top 5, maybe top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. The problem is I think he's still developing. Now, what I mean by that is I don't mean like he's a project, but I mean he's developing in the way that we saw Drew Brees develop. I mean, when Drew Brees was in San Diego, he was developing. Even when he got to Sean Payton in New Orleans, and it was a process. Like, they had a good year the first year and were the number 2 seed in the NFC, but they only went 10-6, so it wasn't like they blew the doors off everybody. But it wasn't until like 2011 or 2012 that we saw like the prime, like rare form Drew Brees that like every year was just like a machine, right? Now, I'm not saying Bo Nix is going to be in that category because I personally think Drew Brees is one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time. But if you think I'm crazy, that's fine because nobody talks about him in that. But go look at all of the stats, the career stats, and you will find that Drew Brees is number 1 or number 2 in basically all of them that matter. And the only person who's ahead of him, in the ones that he is not number 1, is Tom Brady, who played 3 more years than him. So, anyway, yeah, but I so it's a sliding scale, right? Like I think for a year 2 quarterback, Bo Nix is as good as you could possibly hope for, but he's still a year 2 quarterback. That's kind of why I have them third, is just because I trust in Sean Payton, I trust in his decision making, and I trust that Bo Nix is on the absolute optimal trajectory. I just think he's still on he's still getting off the launching pad. So, all right. So, to the NFC East, which is usually a little more, and it's interesting this year, but it's usually a little more interesting in a different way. So, obviously, there's no drama here. The Eagles are going to win the division, and the Commanders are going to come in second. Then there's a battle for third. I think Dallas will get it. because they, I think Dak's a really good quarterback, and I think they have good pieces in place. And I'm a big Schottenheimer fan. I have been, for years. Fun fact: my mom sang at his wedding. Not to name drop, but he married a girl from my hometown, and that girl's mother was good friends with my mom. So we don't know him. Well, my mom has met him, but I don't know him. But we always kind of liked him for that reason. So anyway, yeah, I think they will finish third. Although it would not surprise me if in week 3 or 4 this kid from Ole Miss named Jackson Dart takes over for the flailing Russell Wilson. In fact, it may happen before that because Jackson Dart really impressed in the preseason. Russell Wilson is gonna Russ, as they say, and so it wouldn't surprise me if Jackson Dart comes in and maybe there's a battle for third between New York and Dallas. I mean, realistically, Dallas is a better team, but they have a new regime, and Dayball's fighting for his job. He's really got to do well this year. And so for that reason, I'm going to take Dallas in third, but I don't feel super great about
it. Okay. Well, this one is one where we differed on. I've got Washington winning the division.
Ooh, okay. Don't forget the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, and they got better. They didn't get worse.
I know.
Okay.
I had the Eagles picked earlier. But I was like, you know what, they've gotten better too. So
well, they have. I just don't think they're on the level of. I mean, the Eagles are probably going to be the best team in the NFL this year. But it's your picks. Okay, so let's skip down to the NFC West. We've got the Rams, the 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. And I'm going to freely admit, I don't have a clue about this. This is the one division. Well, there's another division we'll talk about in a minute, but I don't have a real clue in this. I think the 49ers will win it. I think the Rams will come in second. I think the Cardinals will come in fourth, and I think the Seahawks could come in third. But let me just say this. Any order this division comes in short of the 49ers finishing fourth would not surprise me. Because the 49ers, they've kind of been on the cusp. It seems like since 2014, basically. Which isn't exactly true. But I think they're the best team in the division, and I think the Rams are the second best. But I just don't know. Arizona, Seattle both could rise up a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But my gut is San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, and Arizona in that order.
Yeah, I took Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those I wasn't really sure. I didn't want to pick the 49ers because, it's they're the safe pick every year.
Yeah, but Seattle has a new coach, so that's a bold pick,
Yeah. First year coaches, they can do it just as well as anybody else. So.
Not when it's their first head coaching post. I mean, I feel like there's a learning curve like there is anywhere else. Not to say that they can't do that, but look, Mike McDonald is 38 years old. Okay, he's younger than me, younger than you, never been head coach in the NFL. That's why I would be very nervous about. Plus, a roster that's not in terrible shape, but they're not in great shape. So, look, stranger things have happened, but I with a brand new head coach, it's just hard to tell, But that's just me. All right, so Quackers got Seattle winning the NFC West. So moving to the North, this one's pretty easy, in my opinion. I think that it's Detroit in first place, Green Bay in second, Minnesota in third, and Chicago in fourth. You probably agree with that whole thing, right? I mean, I feel like most people are going to put them in that order preseason.
I was going back and forth between Green Bay and Detroit, and I can't go against Detroit right now. I mean,
well, I think there's a pretty big gap in between because Jordan Love is like he's been serviceable, but he's been a little inconsistent, and he's also been not completely healthy. They added, obviously a huge linchpin with Micah Parsons, but I think there's a pretty wide gap between these two teams. I think Detroit may win it by a couple of games, but I certainly think Green Bay is at worst the second best team in the division. So all right, so on to the NFC South, which as I said earlier, we will talk about a lot this in this show. So I have got, and this is going to be super homer of me, so I apologize in advance. But I have got Tampa Bay winning the division, Atlanta coming in second, New Orleans coming in third, and Carolina coming in fourth. The reason it's a homer pick is because I know a lot of people are picking New Orleans fourth, and I get it. I still think Carolina is worse than New Orleans. However, I don't. This is the first time since Aaron Brooks was our quarterback. Stop me if you've heard that name before. This is the first time since Aaron Brooks was the quarterback of New Orleans that I legitimately don't know what to expect. I mean, Kellen Moore might have some magic with Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck. I don't think he does, but he might. So maybe New Orleans surprises people, finishes second in the division. It's unlikely though, so we'll see. Who have you got winning the division?
I always want to say the Saints because that's my team, and I don't like any other team in our division because they're the teams in our division. But I had to pick somebody besides the Saints because I just don't think that they're going to be a competitive team this year. So I went with Tampa Bay. It hurts to pick Tampa Bay, but I haven't seen anything from them that says they're going to fall off.
Until Mike Evans retires, it won't. I mean,
yeah.
So look, here's the thing. So if you're a Saints fan, you're supposed to hate the Falcons the most. I never really have, and there's a good reason for that. There was a player who played for many years for the Panthers who and we're not going to say his name, but who I completely disliked everything he stood for. And so the Panthers have always been one of my least favorite. And now I live in South Carolina, so I'm close to, I'm an hour and a half from Charlotte. And I grew up in Florida, so I've always had a strong hatred, sports hatred for the Bucs. So even though I do like John Gruden and Tony Dungy and a few of their other players, but or a few of their players in addition. But to me, as a Saints fan, the team I dislike the least in the division is the Falcons, and I still don't like the Falcons at all.
Right.
But I'm with you. I don't like any of the teams in the division, but the Bucs are number one for me in both hatred, and they are my preseason pick to win the NFC South.
Yeah, for me, they're all equal. I
I get it.
I hope they all have very painful seasons, and But
I think one of the things, a lot of the coaches that came through the Atlanta pipeline, I really liked. I really always liked Matt Ryan. I liked Julio Jones. They've just, in my adult life, they've had a lot of pieces that I was a fan. I like Arthur Blank. And so the thing is, like, yeah, and I like the city of Atlanta. I don't like the Falcons. But there were a lot of things, that have come out of the Falcons organization that I do like. Plus, Joe Horn ended his career there, and he was a Saint, So it's harder for me to dislike the Falcons, but they are the Saints' biggest rival. So,
yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, with the Falcons, there's been a lot of players that I've really liked, like Matt Ryan. I was a big fan of him in college. But when he went there, I was like, well, I can't pull for you now. Ito Smith, who played running back for Southern Miss, he got drafted by the Falcons, played most of his career there. And, I was like, I hope he has a good career, but I hope he doesn't ever beat the Saints. That was always my take on these players that I liked that wind up going to the Falcons and stuff. It's it's hard. It leaves bitter taste in your mouth when the players you like are the team that you don't. You're like, oh man.
Yeah. All right. So call off your division winners for me one more time. You
See,
you had Seattle, Tampa Bay, and
Detroit,
Detroit, and then
Washington.
Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
And
out of
then
those four, it doesn't have to be out of those four, but it likely would be. Give me your NFC representative for the Super Bowl. It can be any team, but I mean, like, division winners are more likely.
I'm going Detroit.
Okay.
I think they finally break through.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Detroit as well. However, I'm nervous about it because they've had such a hard time.
Yeah.
And I know who you're gonna pick for the AFC too, and it's okay. But go ahead.
Who?
No, go ahead.
I'm picking Buffalo.
Ding, 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 ding. I was trying to find the sound. I couldn't find it in time. Here's why I knew you were going to do that, because you were all about teams breaking curses. You even did it with Detroit. You didn't say that, but, Detroit has never won a Super Bowl. Buffalo has been on the cusp for several years. They had the Jim Kelly years, which is just, heartbreak. So in my head, I'm thinking, and they are one of the best teams in the AFC as well. But I'm thinking, if I know Quacker, he just picked Detroit, he's gonna pick Buffalo. But what's funny is that I'm also gonna pick Buffalo. But I'm picking Buffalo. So we have the same Super Bowl, but I'm picking Buffalo because I think that, while I think the Chiefs are still going to be a formidable opponent, and I think the Texans are rising to the challenge, everyone in the West is good, even besides the Chiefs. In the whole AFC North, is solid, but it's going to be Buffalo or Baltimore in my opinion. But the problem is, I could see Pittsburgh making it. I could see if Joe Burrow stays healthy, I could see the Bengals making it. Probably not ready to say that Stroud and the Texans are going to make it, but it wouldn't. Stranger things have happened. So, yeah. I'm not ready to anoint the Commanders yet. On the other side, I was looking at the NFC just because Jaden Daniels is good, but this is his second season, just like Bo Nix. This is his second season, so I just don't see. I don't see them. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're gonna make it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, we have the same Super Bowl, but there are several teams, particularly in the AFC, that I could see doing it. But I am going to take out of those teams. I'm gonna take, sadly, for the poor Buffalo Bills, I'm taking the Lions and Dan Campbell to win the Super Bowl.
I've been going back and forth with this in my mind. I think if this winds up in the Super Bowl, it's going to be a really good game. You're not going to have a Seattle Denver Super Bowl where it was over in the first quarter. I'll take Buffalo just to have a different pick. I mean, either way, it's a feel good story
because you don't like cheering against either one of the that type of team. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, and so just to set the tone for everybody, so you understand, and I don't know that Quacker knows this. I don't know if I've ever said it to him, but there are a lot of people in my lifetime who hated the Patriots or hated the Colts because they were really good. Or hated the Chiefs because they were really good. I have never been the guy who Now, I hated the Yankees when they were good, but that's because they were always beating the Braves, who were my team. But generally speaking, in pro sports, I've never been that guy. I have no issue with the Chiefs. I have no issue with the Eagles. I have no issue with the 49ers. I did have an issue with the Seahawks when they were winning, but the reasons for that were they were standing in the way of New Orleans, and they were basically the only team over that 2 or 3 year period who was better than New Orleans in the NFC. And they got Jimmy Graham. Now, they got a shell of Jimmy Graham, but they got Jimmy Graham. who ironically was on the Saints roster last year. He might still be on it, but so I say all that to say, but what I don't have any teams that I hate because they're good. But what I do get a little tired of, and the NFL is guilty of this too, just like a lot of other leagues. We saw this with the 4-team college playoff a good bit. I get really tired of when you get to the NFC and AFC championship and the Super Bowl, the same 3, 4, 5 teams rotating in and out. So what I don't want to see is I don't want to see Philadelphia and Kansas City again, or Baltimore. And yes, I know they haven't won a Super Bowl with this regime, but they're always in that last 4, right? I don't want to see Baltimore and San Francisco or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why I would love to see the matchup between Detroit and Buffalo. But plus, their rosters are basically in the shape they need to be in. And Buffalo, Detroit, I think they're hungrier even than Buffalo is because, they had a golden opportunity last year and they wet the bed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's going to be, look, this is going to be a really exciting season. Like I said, I'm really interested to see what Kellen Moore has in store. But it starts tomorrow, and I am pumped. Except for the fact that it's the Cowboys and the Eagles. I mean, again, okay, let me back up. There's one team I don't like. That's the Cowboys. But it's not the Cowboys' fault. It's Jerry Jones and their fans. Like I said,
Yeah.
I like Schottenheimer. I like Dak. I like CD Lamb. I like a lot of their players. But, kind of snooze fest for me when it's the Cowboys.
All right, let me ask you this. You got a dark horse team for this year that you think has a chance, maybe that people aren't, maybe not even doing the championship, just a dark horse to make the playoffs that people aren't giving a shot or aren't talking about very much?
Well, it's between 3 teams for me. It's Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Washington. And you may be saying, everybody's talking about Pittsburgh. Well, what they're talking about is Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think many people are talking about them as a serious contender. But I would say, well, actually, there's 4 teams. I'd put the Giants in that category too. I think they could make the playoffs. I don't really think they will, but I think they could. But yeah, I would go in this order. I'd go Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Washington, and New York Giants. And to qualify the Washington statement, I think most people believe they will make the playoffs. However, I don't think very many people think that they're going to go deep, just because they're still, they're trending upwards. But similar to Bo Nix, they're on the low end of trending upwards,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a young quarterback. So that's what I would go. What about you?
All right, so I've got, I don't know if you could really consider them a dark horse, but the Chargers are one of those teams that I don't know how much press they're getting as far as like a deep playoff run. I think they're gonna make the postseason. I think they can make a deep playoff run.
Yeah,
Harbaugh is
I think
proved to be a good coach.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think most people have them in the playoffs. I think they will wind up having a better year than Denver. I think they're going to finish second in the division. I think they could finish first.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a bad pick. I mean, but they're primed, I think.
Yeah, I would say for me it's them and Cincinnati would be my 2 kind of, in that darker. And for Cincinnati, it's just, can the offensive line protect Joe Burrow? Because they have the offensive weapons. They have
kind of. I mean, that's the other thing is their roster kind of lives and dies with Joe Burrow. Like, they're not like a loaded roster, and that's the thing is Joe Burrow is good enough to elevate them. But the reason Cincinnati was 3rd for me in that list was, I guess I named them 2nd, but they're in my mind they're really 3rd. But like, it's because they, even with Joe Burrow, I don't know that they have all the tools they need to get past maybe the first round of the playoffs. Now the thing is, he is a talented enough quarterback that he could prove me wrong in a heartbeat. But then I don't have a lot of confidence that he'll be playing that late in the season.
Yeah. With the receiver core is really deep. I mean, they got two of the better receivers in the league. I mean, with Javar and T. Higgins, and they have another. Well, I can't think of his name right now, but they have the third receiver that's really good. And then one of the best defensive linemen in the league with Trey Hendrickson. I mean, their defense was pretty solid last year. Was it last year? No, last year's when they sucked at the beginning of the season and they got better at the end of the season. Because they were having to score like 100 points a game to try to win at the beginning of the season last year. If I can remember right. It's just been too long since I've really looked into the NFL last season. But I think that they have the depth on the offensive side of the ball, unless they've lost some pieces I haven't heard about, to kind of muscle their way into the playoffs. And then once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins are both really good. I think it's a pretty big stretch to say that they're some of the best receivers in the league. I'd put them between, in the top 30. That's probably as high as I would go. So I don't know that I really agree, but that's what this is for, to have the banter. But one thing we do agree on is that Joe Burrow, when healthy, is as good as you can ask for. So, there's
maybe
that.
We can trade Shook and Rattler to the Bengals for Burrow.
Yeah, good luck. Although it is funny because Louisiana, and Chad knows more about this than I do, but Louisiana is unique in that it's not. I get this isn't wholly unique, but it's pretty unique because they have one major athletic program among their universities, and that's Louisiana State, otherwise known as LSU. And they have one pro team, and that one pro team has a long history of either drafting or acquiring former LSU players, one of which hurt. I hated him in college because he was so good, and I didn't like it when my team played against them, but broke my heart this offseason because he's now a former NFL player. And, of course, Quacker, we are talking about
the Honey Badger.
The Honey Badger. Loved having him in New Orleans. I loved it when who was the other guy who was there with him the first year he signed? He was a receiver. LSU guy. He was only with him for 1 year. But they played together in college, so he was older as well. I can't think of his name.
I can't either.
Hold on. I got to find this out.
It wouldn't have been Henderson because he was before.
No, it wasn't him. Hold on one second. Let's see here. Oh, Jarvis Landry. That's who it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I just couldn't remember.
And Landry got hurt that season. He didn't even play all that much. That was a disappointment because he was one of those dynamic receivers, and he got to New Orleans and
he was, and he did get hurt, but he also was old. I mean, when because I think he was a year or two ahead of Honey Badger.
Well, he was in the same class.
They played together, but no, I'm talking about. I think he was either a year or two age-wise older, or a year or two in the NFL longer. I don't really know, but I remember them talking about it. So it might have just been age, but they were the same class.
Yeah, he was in the same class as Odell Beckham because they were teammates at LSU and they came out at the same time. But I don't remember when Odell came into the league either. So
seems like he's not, but it seems like he's newer than Tyrann Mathieu. But I don't know. I really, time has gotten so far away from me with all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like when we were a few weeks ago on the Alumni House podcast, we were talking about something. And I was thinking Andrew Luck came out of college in like 11 or 12. Lo and behold, it was like 2008 or 9 or something like that. And I'm like, what the
Yeah.
heck? So,
yeah.
But speaking of one guy that I am so glad the Saints didn't get, and I'm not a fan of at all, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. I just the NFL's got those personalities. I mean, they're sprinkled throughout the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one that he's one of the former LSU players that I'm really glad the Saints did not go out and get. But anyway, yeah. So it's gonna be a fun season. Typically, these episodes will be a little shorter. We spent some time, talking about our predicted standings and playoff picks and kind of establish the rule. But typically, we'll hit each game for briefly a few minutes, and then we'll spend 20 or 30 minutes talking about the South and from through the lens of two Saints fans. So, any final thoughts?
I'm ready for the season start, and who dat?
Yep, who dat? That's right. All right, so we don't have any social media set up. You can find us on the Alumni House YouTube. Which at the current moment is the only place you can find us. But before too terribly long, at some point during the course of this season, we'll have more options for you. But thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.